which is to say nothing of the original sin debacle and the Biden debacle, which I'm fascinated by this book. I know it's really easy to mock, especially those of us who were not calling for Biden to step down, but, saying that he was, getting old, mentally unfit, noticing all these gaffes in the media was saying, it's a cheap fake or whatever. But I personally am not interested in taking a victory lap on this just because I think that every excerpt that comes out is more damning than the last. Yeah. And so I think we should continue, not take it seriously is maybe the wrong term, but the time for doing the victory lap and laughing about it, I think comes later. I think right now we need to continue to put this forward and remind, yes, maybe your listeners, my readers, they didn't need Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson to tell them that Joe Biden was doddering in 2023, but it's still make the case, mount the evidence, right? Yeah. Because whatever happens in 2026 or in 2028, that's going to be something that we're going to, every Democrat that's up for the midterms, every Democratic presidential candidate, we need to put the screws to them. Republicans should be putting the screws to them.
Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to Moment of Truth, the podcast of American Moment. My name is Nick Solheim. I am the CEO of American Moment, and I'm very glad to have you back with us this week. Before I get to talking about our guest here today from the Daily Wire, I did want to flag that, as always, we have a lot of really cool stuff on our website at americanmoment.org. Namely, we currently have our Fall Fellowship for American Statecraft application open. If you would like to get paid to start your career here in Washington, D.C., have us put you in a really cool internship and help you find a job over 12 weeks before Thanksgiving, you should definitely go check that out. Find out more information about it, see past destinations that we've sent fellows, where they are now, and you'll also find the application there. I think we have a lot of fun with it. I think our fellowship alumni speak for themselves. They've had a lot of great success here in DC. We are oh so very proud of them. And we would love to have you join them. So go check that out at americanmoment.org/fellowship. Also, if you are an intern or are going to be an intern in DC this summer, we have a cool program starting up in the very beginning of June. AM Fridays, we are going to be purchasing thousands of dollars of Chick-fil-A every week the entire summer and meeting over in the Senate to bring in a cool speaker to talk about the issues of our time and help educate you on what you can do to join the fight. We would very much like to have you there. You can find out more information about it at americanmoment.org/AM Fridays. We had Tim Rice from the Daily Wire with us today. He's the deputy managing editor of the Daily Wire and effectively running the show here in their new DC office. He's also a contributor to the Morning Wire podcast. And we basically spent this entire episode dissecting what's going on the left, doing a little bit of horse trading, figuring out who's on top, who's up, who's down, who could potentially be the nominee, how we're going to do in the midterms, and then a lot of time laughing about dudes on podcasts, which apparently the left is super upset about. So it was a very fun episode. Tim is a very fun guy. I'd encourage you to follow him on X, and we will go now to Tim Rice. Tim, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's truly an honor to have you here. We're going to spend this entire episode just bashing the left. It's going to be awesome. I've been really looking forward to this. So let's start with the Daily Wire. You currently work there. How did you get there? Tell us your life story, how you ended up being a reporter there.
Yeah, so I am currently the deputy managing editor of Daily Wire, and as of a couple of weeks ago, also our de facto DC editor. We're opening a Washington office, so
I saw that.
Yeah, trying to expand our presence here. We've got Mary Margaret Olohan in the White House crushing it, and hoping to continue doing that. So I've been at the Wire for about a year.
Wait, so are you editing Mary Margaret?
I am. Yeah. It's the best part. It's the best part of my day. She's fantastic.
She's a great writer.
She's so much of a stickler too, and a perfectionist that it really makes my job easier. But so I've been at the Wire for about a year, and before that, I was a senior editor at the Washington Free Beacon for about 4 years. I before that took kind of a circuitous route to journalism. So I went to Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts, And I was like kind of like the generic Democrat college kid. I wasn't a student Dem. I wasn't deeply into politics, but I liked West Wing. I watched Morning Joe sometimes. And, I was like, this is what I want to do. I like politics. But I had a problem, which was that I also really loved American history and specifically the founding. So I'm taking all these political science classes with all these, more moderate or conservative professors who are teaching me about originalism and James Madison and American exceptionalism. And then I'm going home and watching Rachel Maddow. And, I'm realizing early on, like something's got to give.
Yeah.
And eventually it slowly became clear that it was the sort of MSNBC liberalism that was going to give. And I really wanted to work in TV. So I wanted to get in media right out of college. And I quickly learned two things about the kind of media, the cable news jobs that I was looking for. One is that there aren't that many, or there weren't at the time. It was harder to get. And the other was that the ones that were available didn't really pay that much money. So I wound up starting as the project manager for health policy at the Manhattan Institute. I knew nothing about health policy. Gun to my head, I probably couldn't have told you the difference between Medicare and Medicaid on my first day, which my boss knew at the time. He was like, we'll train you up. We'll get you ready. Turned out I really liked health policy and I kind of had a knack for it. And because I, until recently, didn't know anything about it, I was really good at translating complicated issues into simple terms for op-eds and things because I had to do that myself in order to understand it.
That's what I do on this podcast. I don't know anything. Yeah, I just
I had to dumb it down for myself. And then that just became the op-ed.
Yeah.
So eventually, by the time I left, I was deputy director of the health policy team there. Wow. That was in the first Trump administration. So kind of a weird time to do it. Like I came in and right when I thought I was getting the hang of things, like Hillary's going to come in and we're going to have to fight about Obamacare and Medicaid reform and drug prices. And then all of a sudden the playbook got thrown out. So I was at MI for about 3 years, moved down to Washington because that's where all the fun is. Worked as an in-house editor at a small consulting firm for a couple of years, and then was trying to get an administration job, which I did in July of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So the perfect time to, absolutely nothing on the horizon. And I started as a public affairs specialist at the Office of Personnel Management. It was a very different time at OPM than now. I'm sure we could talk about that. But, yeah, I was there till the end. I was press secretary by the end. A press secretary who gave no press conferences.
When was your last day?
My last day was the last day, like the Friday before. It was the Friday before the inauguration.
I'm checking to see if it was January 7th.
No, it was.
Or if it was.
It was, I don't know if I've ever, this is the first time I'll publicly reveal this, but on my last day, it was the Friday before, like we all had Monday off and then the inauguration was Tuesday, I think.
Yeah.
Like I literally came in, worked a half day, walked outside of the building to call the Free Beacon and accept my job at the Free Beacon. Because at that point I had the offer. Like I walked outside of it. I was like, I can't do this in a government building. It just felt wrong. Like to the end, I'm a civil servant. So I went outside, like sat on a bench, called them, accepted the job. Then I was at the Beacon. And now I started as an editor and continued as an editor. And so, now I'm at the Daily Wire and just continuing to enjoy it. It's been a wild time to be in journalism, to be in any of these jobs, really.
Yeah.
I'm excited that I've been in DC for about 6 years now, so excited to help bring the Wire a little bit more here, open a brick and mortar, and get some more folks on the team.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me that I see so many Daily Wire people here all the time that I'd sort of assumed that you guys had an office here.
That's good. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, I didn't even really know that you guys didn't. So it's very glad to I'm very glad to have you guys here to join the party. But something that my wife actually put you on my radar for having you on the show because you've done some interesting stuff about sort of the self-immolation that's currently going on the left. Give us the overview. Like it strikes me that there's sort of this, there's the race to the left that's happening among the candidates themselves, but also in the last couple of days, we've seen this huge war break out among the consultant class over whose fault it is that like Biden kept running for president and that he was basically a vegetable. Give us your overview of like what's happening.
Yeah. Well, so I'm not usually somebody who comes with statistics ready to go, but I read one this morning that was great and I managed to remember it. So I'm going to start with this. According to a new study that I just read about this morning, only a third of Democratic voters are optimistic about the future of the Democratic Party.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Compared to 55% of Republicans. So that's like, I mean, just as a matter of like who the members of these parties are, I feel like this is probably the first time ever that Republicans have been more optimistic about the future than Democrats, which is to say, in a vacuum, nothing about the actual states of things, just like Democrats are always optimistic. Happy days are here again. Republicans are always pessimistic because we know better. But so I think that's really fascinating. And the second thing that I'll say, and I don't really know what this means yet, I've been thinking a lot about this, is the Bernie AOC resistance tour, right? When you read the stories about this tour, which like are clearly being done in conjunction with Bernie and AOC, like this is obviously not just like some intrepid New York Times journalists coming out and covering this on themselves. They're really pushing Bernie as the leader, which I get because he's the older one, but like, is Bernie Sanders really going to run for president again? He's going to be like 88. I genuinely, like, I would be interested to know what you think. I think about this once a day. I haven't been able to figure it out. And like, they're starting, AOC had that video that kind of looked like a campaign ad. So like, she's clearly starting to position herself, but I don't know. I feel like the Democrats are like prisoners of muscle memory. And for so long, they were like, we want a progressive, but it's going to be AOC. But AOC's too young. She can't run for president, like constitutionally. So it's going to be Bernie. And then it's going to be Bernie again. And now AOC is eligible, but they're still pushing Bernie. And I don't know if they know what they're doing. I don't know if it's intentional. I don't know if it's part of some 4-dimensional chess. But like, I think the fact that this hasn't just been the AOC show for that wing of the party really indicates that they're not learning some lesson. And whether it's just we have to keep rerunning, maybe they've fallen into the old, right? Wasn't it before Trump, the Republican Party hadn't since like 1940 elected a president who hadn't previously run for president? Or George Bush, something like that. Like everyone had run at least once. Maybe the Democrats are falling into that trap. Like they're only running people who have run before. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is, but I think that those two facts are kind of at the top of my mind. Like, the voters are crying out for some kind of change. And the biggest thing that they can offer is Bernie Sanders and maybe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which is to say nothing of the original sin debacle and the Biden debacle, which I'm fascinated by this book. I know it's really easy to mock, especially those of us who were not calling for Biden to step down, but, saying that he was, getting old, mentally unfit, noticing all these gaffes in the media was saying, it's a cheap fake or whatever. But I personally am not interested in taking a victory lap on this just because I think that every excerpt that comes out is more damning than the last. Yeah. And so I think we should continue, not take it seriously is maybe the wrong term, but like the time for like doing the victory lap and like laughing about it, I think comes later. I think right now we need to continue to like put this forward and remind, yes, maybe like your listeners, my readers, they didn't need Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson to tell them that Joe Biden was doddering in 2023, but it's still like make the case, mount the evidence, right? Yeah. Because whatever happens in 2026 or in 2028, that's going to be something that we're going to, every Democrat that's up for the midterms, every Democratic presidential candidate, we need to put the screws to them. Republicans should be putting the screws to them to say, what did you say about the time? You said he was fit. You said that you watched him run a marathon. You said that he was smarter than anybody. Yeah. You said that he could do 4 more years, 8 more years, like putting them in that position.
He didn't recognize George Clooney, dude.
And as somebody, I think it was in Politico Playbook said he didn't recognize George Clooney before he dyed his hair. Yeah. Which is really like, that's when you're cooked.
I like the caveat before he dyed his hair. It sort of seems to me that, we've got these 2 major political parties, right? They're both the varsity teams. And it feels like everybody on the Democrat varsity team is actually like the whole varsity team is sick and we got all the JV guys sitting on the bench, right?
Yeah, it's like freshman's big
day. Break it down for us. Like on this video that seemed like a campaign ad from AOC, I think the B-roll from that was this rally that they did in, I want to say it was Meridian. It was somewhere in Idaho. Mm-hmm. And it looked full. Yeah. Like what is happening? Why in a place like Idaho are Bernie and AOC filling a a venue like that?
I mean, I think there's two things. I think one,
or are they paying people to be there?
I don't know about that. I mean, it's who's to say? It could always be like the Elvis and the Colonel Parker. Like, that story, Colonel Parker, once Elvis said that he wanted to sell an arena out and the Colonel couldn't get all the seats filled, so he had the people take out the back 5 rows of chairs.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying it's that. I think there are two things. I think one, there is this latent kind of like farmer worker progressivism in the Midwest that I think.
Hold up. Do you think Idaho's part of the Midwest?
Oh man, I'm a New Yorker. That's bad. That's sorry. I'm sorry.
There's your direct to camera.
My direct to camera moment. I'm sorry, Idahoans and people from the Midwest. I look in what
Western populism.
Exactly. Yes. There's some sort of. So I do think that those sorts of voters will gravitate towards whoever the progressive standard bearer is, right? So, I mean, obviously, Bernie Sanders and AOC are not William Jennings Bryan, but they're kind of filling that role. So I think that might have something to do with it. But I think the other thing is that AOC is a pretty compelling presidential candidate, right? I don't think anything that she says, but she is funny. She's knows how to command a room. She's the most likable of all of the squad members. She's the most willing to play ball with the mainstream or the middle of the party, right? She's obviously trying to work them from the left, but she's trying to work them. Whereas your Ilhan Omars and Ayanna Presley's are just sort of content to be like renegades constantly to the left. She really is what Bernie was before her. And I think that she's kind of played it so that she's moved not to the middle in her positions necessarily, but like in her ambitions, in her rhetoric, right? We get less and less of the I'm just a waitress from Queens here to fight for the people. I'm going back to the district. It's, tweeting about going to bodegas. Like,
she's a political animal now.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's not even a criticism. That is a very shrewd, like for people that start in the House and want to get to the White House. That's what you do, right? You start by playing up your particular angle. If you're young, if you're an insurgent, that's what you do. You talk a lot about your district. You talk a lot about your state. And then you slowly move to a more national perspective. That's what she's doing now. And I think that, people know her. People know the name. She's got a good little moniker, right? 3 letters, easy to remember. She smiles. She comes in. She takes pictures. So I do think that, like, I'm not surprised that she filled the room because I think that people are realizing, like, she's going to be one of the standard bearers of the Democratic Party going forward. And she's way more interesting than Pete Buttigieg. Yeah.
The thing that's sort of interesting to me, thinking back to when Bernie was first running in 2015 is he had a very broad appeal in terms of a lot of these things that people were very frustrated about. So cost of housing, people forget in 2015, like Bernie was, going after open borders. Like he said it was a Koch brothers proposal was open borders.
Oh my God, a different world.
He said open borders. I would never support open borders.
The billionaires want their cheap labor. The millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah, and it so like that at least made sense to me, right? Because a lot of people on the right care about those same things. What does she bring to the table? She doesn't care about immigration, trade, foreign policy in a way that, most Americans are thinking about it. Like, I don't really understand. Is it just that she's with Bernie? And maybe that's why they're having Bernie sort of headline it?
Yeah, I think that could be it. I think also just what you're saying is that's right. I mean, Bernie's like not tentpole issues, but 2 of his tentpole issues in 2015 were no open borders and capping prescription drug prices. Yeah. And I mean, that's like the Trump administration right now. And I think, right, I mean, every think piece, every talk show, if we were doing this podcast in 2015, we'd be saying, what's populism? Yeah. What is populism? Has it been the same? Is there a right populism?
Many people are still saying that.
Right. But that's like, Bernie was the populist. That was the sort of like Bernie and Trump, they're the same guy, or aren't they? They're both from New York. Like, this is clear that everyone's unhappy with the establishment. I think because Trump has clearly become the Republican establishment and remade the Republican establishment in his image and with his people in a lot of ways, right? Second-term president, a 4-year gap in which clearly his influence did not wane and if anything expanded. There's now like populism has been severed from progressivism on the left, I think. So I think it's sort of like maybe if things had gone differently, AOC would be sounding a little bit more like Bernie. Maybe as she gets closer to the primary. Democrats always everyone changes in the primary debates, but Democrats really, I feel like, change in the primary debates. And I'm not even saying that as like it's a shifty thing. Like, I mean, with some people it is. I really just think it's more that like Democrats kind of get to skate by on these sort of like pie in the sky, resisting Republicans, pushing for progress things until they're on the debate stage and have to differentiate themselves from each other. Whereas Republicans are always getting nailed to that, because whether you're a foreign policy hawk or an isolationist or a fiscal hawk, like the things that make Republican political platforms require a little bit more specificity than Democrats who could just get up and say, we need jobs, we need tax cuts for the poor, we need, free stuff, we need to legalize more things. So maybe she'll get back to striking more of this populist note, but I don't necessarily think so. I think at this point, populism has sort of become, in their minds, in the Democrats' minds, the purview of the right. And so the alternative there is not between sort of establishment Democratic politics and populist Democratic politics. It's between centrist Democratic politics and progressive Democratic politics.
Yeah. I will never forget one of the Democratic primary debates in 2015 where Bernie goes, I think we should do this with healthcare. And Hillary says, I think we should do that with healthcare. Martin O'Malley was just kind of there. And then Jim Webb goes, I killed a guy. I will never, ever forget that. I don't even know what's happening with Jim Webb now.
I haven't thought about Jim Webb probably since that debate, since whenever the gas ran out on that show.
Yeah.
But you raised another interesting point there, or you made me think of another interesting point, which is that Bernie in those debates was such a thorn in everybody's side.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see AOC doing that. Obviously, she's been a little bit of thorn. Like, she was certainly a thorn in Nancy Pelosi's side.
Yeah.
She was probably a thorn in Hillary's side for a little bit. She's done that. But as we were saying earlier, the political animal side is coming out of her. I think she knows, unlike Bernie, who sort of saw himself as the people's candidate, right? Like,
he's a crotchety old man.
I'm still an insurgent. I'm not going to tighten my tie knot. I'm not going to pretend like I like Hillary Clinton. I'm sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails. AOC, I think, understands that she is one of 2 or 3 heirs apparent for the Democratic Party. I think she thinks that she should be the nominee in 2028. So I don't expect her to have that kind of outside progressive gadfly perspective in the debates that Bernie had, because I think she's going to come in like, give me this nomination, right? Like, her goal is not to push the party to the left anymore. It's not to hold the other candidates on stage accountable. Her goal is to make voters realize that she's a more attractive candidate than Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom, and that she should be the one that wins all the major primaries and go up against Vice President J.D. Vance, I would imagine, or whoever else it is.
Yeah. So who would you say are the other wings of the Democratic Party and their respective standard bearers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting. The hardest one to define is like, who's the mainstream, right? Because you have Newsom, an ultra liberal California kind of career politician who is kind of unlikable and a little bit greasy with, he has that sort of like, he looks like a movie villain, right? Like, people inherently don't trust Gavin Newsom. But he's now trying to be the moderate, right? He has this podcast. He's talking to Charlie Kirk. He's saying that, he's lying. We've reported on this extensively. He's saying, I never said that about transgender issues or things like that. But I don't really know who claims the center, because the other one who's trying to do it is JB Pritzker, who, is coming out with, but he's the classic Democratic case of, guy who looks like a populist, but is actually a generationally wealthy millionaire.
Yeah.
So is it him? I don't know. I was thinking about Martin O'Malley this morning as I was getting ready to come on this podcast. Because
you're probably the only guy in America who was thinking about Martin O'Malley.
Including Martin O'Malley, maybe. But like, who's the new Martin O'Malley? Like, I kind of liked Martin O'Malley when he was there, because
I met him in Iowa. He was a delightful man. I showed up, I was volunteering for the Republican Party of Iowa in 16, and I was there with my college roommate, who was the president of College Democrats at my school. There was actually a local news story on us because I was the chair of College Republicans and he was the chair of College Democrats, and we shared a dorm.
Nice.
But anyway, so he was a big Martin O'Malley guy. He was a volunteer for Martin O'Malley. We go to his event the morning of the caucuses at a coffee shop, and we were one of 5 people that showed up, and he dropped out that night.
Oh, no.
And the coffee shop had accidentally double booked him and then Ben Carson. So there were like, and Ben was up at that point in time.
Yeah, that's right.
So there were
that's
like
right.
200 people over on the other side of this coffee shop for him. And then it was like me and 4 other guys just like talking to Martin O'Malley. He was a cool dude.
Yeah.
Never seen him since.
Martin O'Malley and like Howard Dean and I'm sure a bunch of other guys who I'm not thinking of right now. They were just like normal coded guys, right? They had normal vibes. You know, and it's like they have like kind of like cringy dad vibes, but in a way that's like nice and normal. Oh yeah, like they like which one of them? One of them is it O'Malley that like plays guitar?
I think so.
Probably Howard Dean does too, right? Like they love talking about like Springsteen and Tom Petty. And they play guitar. They make jokes about like embarrassing their kids, and it's like you know what? I can relate to that. I can't necessarily relate to your healthcare plans or what you want for the future of this country. I don't agree with you, but like you see stuff like that and you like it. That's more like again like that sort of moderate mainstream. So I don't. I feel like the Democrats, if they want to win in 2026 and certainly in 2028, they need to get back to, like, to use a stupid phrase, like they need to get back to political brass tacks, right? They need to start talking about the American dream again. They need to find a way to put their spin on it where, for average Americans, for actual Americans who are here, not these hypothetical Americans down the line, right? They do a lot of, if you vote for Republicans, your great grandchildren are no, none of that. For people that are going to the polls right now, like your taxes are too high. We're going to fix that. Your healthcare is unaffordable. We're going to fix that. You can't get a job. We're going to fix that. You don't like the crime in your neighborhood. We're going to fix that. And some of that they have answers for, right? Like they have, I mean, I don't think they're good answers. I don't think they're thought out answers, but like they're going to have an answer for healthcare. They're going to push something. It's probably going to be Medicare for all, but like, they'll do something. Drug price controls probably, maybe not because Trump's sort of taken that. They'll say, you know, something about free education. But then the other issues that it's going to be like, how are you going to create jobs? How are you going to reduce crime, right? They're going to need to start talking about crime. They're probably going to need to talk about the border. They have to stop talking about the environment and they have to stop talking about the identity politics stuff. And we're already seeing them move away from that, right? And we're seeing corporate America move away from that. I don't want to beat the drum too early, right? But like, I do sort of think that stuff, like that really, really leftist ideological stuff, I think that is done at least for the next 5 years, right? I think maybe it comes back depending on how Democrats do in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
But I think the trickier things for them is going to be like, can they stop talking about environmental stuff? Can they stop framing everything in terms of like, you know, when they talk about taxes, can they talk about just actually cutting taxes without talking about EV tax credits? Or, you know, can they talk about creating jobs without the jobs being like clean energy researching jobs, right? Like this is why Trump won. He won because he was doing like very standard basic retail politics, saying like, these are things that you don't like about your quality of life. I have a plan to fix them. That's what wins elections. Maybe we had like this weird interregnum in the Obama years where that wasn't what won elections because everyone was really excited about hope and change, soft power, and, you know, like technocrats. But like, that's done. That's over. And we're back to like kind of what the standard had been for American elections since the 20th century. And they need to really figure that out. And I think if they don't, they're just going to keep losing.
So you've got Newsom, Pritzker, AOC. Who else?
Pete Buttigieg? He's going to, I'm going to mix up the I states again. Is he going to Idaho or is he going to Illinois? He's going somewhere this week.
Illinois. Dude.
Illinois. That's all right. You know, let's see. I expressed hesitation there. He's going somewhere. He's going to one of the big primary states. He grew a beard. He took his pronouns out of his bio. He's getting a little feisty, you know, like his whole, and once again, another political animal, right? Pete Buttigieg's whole thing was like, I'm mild-mannered. I worked at McKinsey. I can do the numbers. I'm good at this. Like when he was at DOT, it was all about like.
Turns out he was really bad.
Well, yeah, but you know, when he was at DOT, it was all like, I'm an expert. I'm a technocrat. We're going to get the trains to run on time. Now he's out there like making jokes about like Newark Airport, like not having good stuff. And he's kind of like trying to take pot shots at Sean Duffy. It's like a little endearing. It's a little cringe. You know, he's out there with his beard like, hey, Sean Duffy, you know, the airplane passengers called and they wanted to leave on time, which like isn't a good joke, but like at least he's trying, you know, because it's like he understands, like he's practicing. You can see it in his mind. And I think it's probably killing him a little bit, but you can see that he's getting ready for like the steak fries and the county fairs and glad handing at a bunch of diners. And so maybe he's the one that takes like more of the middle tack. I mean, I actually think Buttigieg is probably less progressive than he often seems, just because the fact that he's a gay man, like his political opponents on the right kind of like cast him as like that in and of itself is like a marker that they're like, oh, look at, you know, this guy. But like really, if you look at his politics, like yeah, he's kind of a small town mayor. He's like, he's
kind of a normie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll be, but that'll also be an interesting thing, right? Like, is the mainstream future of the Democratic Party like this kind of like elite educated guy who everyone is sort of kind of branded as like this ultra progressive consulting guy? I don't know what's going to happen. They're in a weird, they don't have like, everyone's like a hodgepodge on the Democratic Party.
Speaking of glad handing at county fairs, I feel so bad for our viewers. I think this is the third episode in a row where I've brought this up. But have you seen this picture of JB Pritzker next to the butter cow?
Oh, I think
he's like as wide as the cow, dude. Again, I feel so bad for our listeners, but I cannot get this image out of my mind. I think about it at least 2 or 3 times a week.
The listeners, this is going to become a thing. Like you're going to, on like the Twitter comments, going to be like, they're going to take bets. Like, is Nick going to bring up JB and the butter cow?
Is he going to bring up the butter cow this week? I'm from the Midwest. So
okay,
it's
the actual Midwest.
Yeah, the actual Midwest. I'm not from Idaho. So
I might be wrong about this. I'm pretty bad at predicting elections. So like everyone should take all of this with a grain of salt. That's why I'm happy to talk about this far out from 2028, because so much is going to change that like, I'll just kind of look like I was, doing the best that I could. But I am fundamentally uninterested in JB Pritzker. Yeah. I don't think he's like a bad candidate. I don't think he's a good candidate. I think he's kind of boring. I think that the rich guy stuff is ultimately going to ding him. I don't think that there's anything that he really has that'll like make him stand out. He's older than Buttigieg and AOC. He's less progressive than all of them. He's less cool than Newsom. Like, he needs to do a lot more work, I think, to get like very presidential and electable. Whereas like all AOC needs to do is move a little bit to the center. All Buttigieg needs to do is be a little bit more folky. All Newsom needs to do is apologize for a couple of the things he did in California during COVID. Yeah. And I think that really opens up that middle crew of like centrist, Democratic, maybe undecided voters. Yeah. Pritzker's like too weird. I think he's like very appealing on the surface because again, he looks like a governor. He looks like a centrist governor. Yeah. But like really when you scratch the surface, it's like he's like a little bit too established. He's a little bit too rich. Again, he's a little too uninteresting. Yeah. He would have to do a lot of stuff to like he would have to move the needle further to get electable.
He's just an obese weirdo. He's just not
he's an odd guy. He's an odd guy. Yeah.
The only reason I think about him is because of the butter cow. That's it. We were talking a little bit about this, the rebrand for Newsom and for Buttigieg. Do you think it's going to work for either of them?
Probably.
Do you think that's because voters have like short-term memory?
Well, I think it's because I think Democrats need to vote for somebody, right? Yeah. And I think that we're probably no matter how the Trump administration, no matter how the next 4 years go, I think we're going to be past the point of having that like really big group of up for grabs voters, right? Yeah. They're either going to, especially if it is the vice president who runs in 2028, or if it's Trump for a third term, that's going to be a known quantity. MAGA has officially become institutionalized. We have MAGA cabinet secretaries. We have MAGA members of both houses of Congress. We have MAGA judges. It's like in 2017, right? Like 2015, everyone was talking about what is populism. 2017 to 2019, everyone was talking about, does MAGA have a future? Can there be MAGA without Trump? We now have a definitive answer to that question. And it's yes. And we know what it looks like. And we know who the people are. And we know who the think tanks are. And the support. It's here. It's done. So you're not going to have this sort of like middle group of like, oh, they could go for AOC, but they could also go for Vance. So like Democrats who are not leftists are going to have to pick somebody. And I think that really just I think it's going to come down to the three. I think it's going to come down to AOC, Newsom, and Buttigieg. And I think whichever of the three of them does the best job of positioning themselves as more of a likable, down-to-earth centrist than the rest of them gets the nomination. And that's actually why I think that Newsom is... See, already I'm going to make this prediction and I already don't like it. But I'm going to say it. I think Newsom's out for that reason. Because I think Newsom has been like the very fancy, famous-looking governor of the Hollywood state for too long. And it's going to be hard. He's going to have to, if he wants to win, he's going to have to sell who he actually is. And I don't think he's doing that, as that podcast evidences, right? Like he's trying to do the move to the middle. I think that's a mistake for him. I think the best thing that Gavin Newsom has is that he's like, I'm what Joe Biden would have been if he ran when he was 50.
Yeah.
You know, I'm handsome, I'm cool, I party with movie stars, I go to French Laundry, even, you know, during the lockdowns. I got cool hair.
Who cares?
I used to be married to Don Jr.'s wife. Like, I'm awesome. I'm progressive, but I'm also like rich and fancy. And like, oh, let's be America, right? Like, he needs to lean into his version of elitism. I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's signaling that he's going to try to do this other thing. I think he loses that race between Buttigieg and AOC, who are like more normal, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
you said you don't like to make predictions as we get closer.
I like to. I'm just not good at it.
Well, I'm going to make you do it. What's
All right.
going to happen in the midterms?
Oh,
In your humble opinion.
in my humble opinion, I think that Republicans will narrowly hold on to both houses of Congress. But I think they have an uphill battle because this is how it always goes, right? In the first midterm of a new the first midterm after a new party takes over the White House, the incumbent party always loses down ballot seats. And I think that Trump has delivered on all of the promises, most of the promises that he's made. He promised to move fast and break things, basically, right? To use the Elon Silicon Valley term, and he's doing it. That gives candidates in the midterms a lot of fodder, right? Like, not even talking about the relative benefits of the most favored nation rule, tariffs, the border, birthright citizenship, all of the foreign policy stuff, the Qatari jet, like things that are serious, things that are kind of silly. That's a lot. He's given a lot, right? And like, whereas the administration and the Republicans are touting that it's been an incredibly productive and energetic 100 days, which it has, that's 100 days of oppo and 100 days of things for Democrats to ding their Republican opponents on. And I actually think that the original sin Biden thing that we were talking about at the beginning is actually even going to help some Democrats because, look, Kamala lost. There's no heir apparent. Everyone can now just kind of like not yet.
I love that we didn't even talk about her in that entire
right,
section.
exactly. Yeah, we did talk about Kamala, right? Like, and like she'll probably come back. Maybe she'll make one more, but like, there's no more. Like, there's no one to talk about, and they can really easily disavow Joe Biden now.
I literally forgot about her until just now.
No, we were talking about California. But like, you know, they're just going to be able to say that. So that's like, that would have been one of the easier things, right?
Yeah.
Ding them on Joe Biden. Now it's been given cover, right? Everyone's speaking anonymously. They can just come out, but then they can say, I disavow the mistakes of my former party leader. What about you? Right? And then do you disavow tariffs? Do you think what he's doing on the border is humane? Do you really believe this birthright citizenship thing? And like, again, a lot of people that are up for that are running for re-election or that are running for election do agree with Trump. Gone are the days when the Republican Party is mostly people who disagree with Trump, right? It's good for the Republican Party when everyone's in power. It's going to be tricky during elections because they're not going to say no, right? They're not going to say no.
But you still think we're going to pull out a narrow majority?
Yeah, because I'm an optimist.
Okay.
Do you disagree?
I just don't really think about it.
Yeah.
At all. Dude, I like when you're talking about all this like wish casting stuff, I don't even know what I'm gonna have for dinner tonight, brother. Like, I don't know. My wife has been making fun of me for this because like Sunday night she'll be like, oh, so what do you got going on tomorrow? And I'm like, I will look at my calendar tomorrow morning. I have no idea. No clue. No Sunday scaries here. I have no idea what I'm doing
It's
tomorrow.
not even like a day. Like, what's Monday? I don't even know.
Yeah. So, no, I don't think that far ahead.
All right. That's a good answer.
But one of the things that I was most excited to talk to you about, because dudes rock, is, there's sort of been this thing where we've had all these, Mark Krikorian is calling me. I will call him back. I love him. I'm going to leave that in too. He's great. So one of the things that's been said about the reason why Kamala lost is misogyny at Joe Rogan. There were so many memes. It was insurmountable. We lost because all the men were so cool. What say you?
The men are having too much fun.
We're having too
internet.
much fun, dude.
It's like, this would be like if in 2004, like somebody was blogging on like the Daily Costs and was like, the reason Bush won a second term is because guys can't stop quoting Anchorman.
Yeah.
It's
great.
Which like, it's so ridiculous. Look, I'm a man. You're a man. I care about these things. I think that there are a lot of serious things to be said about like the state of the American man, future of the American, how men are being affected by the future of work and, the feminization of society and all these things that people talk about that I don't even necessarily, I probably come down kind of in the middle on all these things. But
we have kids. We're not like thinking about.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no,
you're
yeah.
about to have kids.
I have one. I have the one.
Oh, you have one.
I have one.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I have two more coming. Yeah.
Okay,
So it's I'm not. I'm just like I'm doing it. Right. Like,
I'm doing the thing.
I understand there's a broader problem out here, but like I'm a married dad, so it's like I'm to your point about not knowing what's on. The way that I'm defending masculinity or being an authentic man is by like changing diapers and doing the dishes so my pregnant wife doesn't have to. But this is a very long way of saying that as important as some of that stuff is, the stuff that the left is talking about when it comes to men is so overwrought. Like, it's basically just like, I mean, it's the old joke of like the left can't meme, but it's like, okay, like, so Rogan's kind of an iconoclast that people like to go on his podcasts. Like, just because like, I just really don't, I feel like Democrats and like the mainstream media are shocked when men do anything as like a group. Yeah. And it's weird because, like, we were joking before, but like, bros are sort of like a universal phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Like frat bros, lax bros, car bros, whiskey bros, craft beer bros.
I'm like half those bros.
Yeah, there's so many bros that eventually it seeped over to the left, and we had Bernie bros and the Obama bros, the Pod Save America bros, right? Like, I think that there was like a bros for Kamala group, right? Like there was like. So it's like, it's a known quantity. Like, we joke about guys being dudes, but like left to their own devices, guys are going to be dudes. They're going to hang out with other guys and sort of like casually talk about their interests, whether those interests are whiskey and cigars or democratic politics or whatever. But like, whenever American men start to move or vote or think as a block, like the New York Times freaks out. The Democratic Party freaks out. Yeah. And it has to be misogyny. It can't just be that like men sometimes think like other men across demographics, which is weird because, and I mean, I think it's probably just like a little bit of intentional blindness because like they're happy to do it with women, right? Soccer moms, suburban moms, regardless of race or gender, right? Like it's like, or gender, like regardless of like race or state or income level, right? Like soccer moms are going to vote like a block. And when men were voting in droves for Democrats, right? Like when the Obama bros were a phenomenon, that was like a thing. Like, all these young men are coming to Washington. But like once men start kind of like voting in a block and voting for Republicans, all of a sudden it's a problem. Yeah. And then I think from there, they just reverse engineer. They're like, okay, but what are they doing? Oh, they're listening to podcasts. Oh, they're going on podcasts. Oh, they're starting podcasts. That must be the issue. Podcasts must be the issue. And it's like, no, that's just what they're doing. Like, it's just like, this is just what it is. It's like quoting Anchorman. It's just a thing that men are doing. Yeah. It's sort of like it's downstream of everything. Everything else is happening. They're coming up with their ideas. They're coming up with their thoughts. They're voting the way they're doing. This is just then what they do.
Or like every married guy going, my wife.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's like no one is in, we're not in bowling.
We're all doing it.
Yeah, we're not in bowling leagues anymore. We like quote like funny movies from when we were in high school and we do podcasts or we listen to podcasts and we follow podcast hosts on Instagram. Like it's never been easier to like engage with your celebrities. It's easy to see why this is a thing that people do. For some reason though, this has just been like branded as like a thing that is like men are doing and it's bad.
Yeah, well, I think it's deeper than just the left can't meme. I think it's that the left can't have fun. Yeah. Like, yes. Can you imagine Kamala going on Joe Rogan?
No.
Like, it's just, what would they talk about?
Well, even when they try to do it, it's like Newsom has this podcast and like, it's a very serious podcast. I'm going to have a podcast where I'm going to talk to people that are my ideological opponents and we're going to have serious, frank discussions. Like it's a very special episode of like a sitcom or something. And it's like,
I want to talk about the butter count.
Right. And like no one, Donald Trump can be very serious. JD Vance can be very serious. They're very serious men. Yeah. But like when they go on like Theo Vaughn's podcast or like, they talk to Dave Portnoy or they show up at the MMA fight with Dana White and Rogan, like they're funny. They're having fun. You can see that they're enjoying themselves. Yeah. Like there was a time to be a statesman and a leader, and there was a time to just be a regular person. And to go back to what we were talking about before, you know who I can see going on these podcasts and having fun? Martin O'Malley. Like guys like that. Howard Dean, maybe not so much now. Howard Dean in like 2001, but right, like those. I mean, Bill Clinton, right? Like, Bill in the 90s.
Bill Clinton was cool, dude.
In the 90s, Bill Clinton went on Arsenio because the late night talk show was the podcast of the 90s. That was awesome. If Bill Clinton was running right now, Bill Clinton would be on every single podcast, and he would know whatever the podcast bit was before he went on it, and
he'd be playing the saxophone.
He would trot it out. He would like do the inside joke, and people would lose their minds. That would be Bill Clinton right now. There's no one in the Democratic Party who's doing that right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting that I get the sense that a lot of the way that we consume media has collapsed. Like a lot of the guys I talk, I live in West Virginia, and a lot of the guys I talk to out there who don't, they don't watch Fox News. They don't really like keep up with what's going on, but our information diet in terms of podcasts is the same. Yeah. So like they're all listening to Rogan, and they're listening to who was it that you just mentioned?
Theo Von.
Theo Von, which I also like regularly listen to. They're listening to Tucker and Matt Walsh, and like we are all listening to all the same things.
One of the most surprising things that I have continued to find since starting at the Daily Wire is the amount of people who I meet who are not in DC, completely apolitical, like probably haven't voted in a while, don't really care, don't work in any industry that's adjacent to politics, even in the slightest. Like they listen to Ben Shapiro, or they listen to Matt Walsh or Michael Knowles. Like I've gotten like LinkedIn DMs. Oh yeah,
I was remiss to not mention Michael.
That's all right. He's a benevolent, he's a forgiving man. He'll forgive.
No, his show is great too. It's very good. I've gotten
DMs from guys that I went to high school with who I haven't talked to since high school. That like when I updated, like well, clearly I'm connected with on LinkedIn. When I changed my job, like, dude, like congrats on that job. Like the Michael Knowles show is sick, and it's like I look at what they're doing. I'm like, oh, like is this guy like in DC? Like I should look him up. Maybe we could like go get a beer or a cup of coffee. And I look, and they're like finance guys in Colorado. Like they're just like so completely, but like this, and I'm talking about my own company because, of home field advantage. But to your point, like I'm sure these guys that I talk to and meet are also listening to Rogan and Tucker and stuff like that. So it is interesting that it's like, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. There's a question in there somewhere. I don't know what the answer is to why. Like,
yeah, it's just like there's no like casual media interface on the left that's fun.
Yeah.
I think it's just a statement, like not a question. And
then even like you get like Barstool, which is like, I mean, it's getting like more and more like conservative coded the more that Portnoy, like as an individual, saddles up to Trump or like speaks out about anti-Semitism or things, all of which is great. Like good for him. But like Barstool isn't like political. It's just funny. I think that's part of it is that like you can like Democrats like, and like liberal media, like everyone's too serious, but it's because like no one wants to like do the impieties, right? Like no one wants to be impious. No one wants to like push the envelope a little bit, right? Yeah. It's why like everyone is still like every time Dave Chappelle comes out with a new special, it's like shocking because it's like he's this like progressive guy, but he's funny. Why is he funny? Because he says stuff that you're not allowed to say, right? Yeah. Like that's kind of the essence. We all know this is not like an original point, but like that's the essence of comedy. That's sort of like what makes these things fun. And it's just like the willingness to do that. I think it's not even that it exists more on the right. I don't think because there's something inherently like humorous or like prone to like irony and fun about conservatism. If anything, right? Like you look back, like conservatism used to be a very serious business. Like
we're the goody two shoes.
If Russell Kirk and Barry Goldwater were here, they would be having a very different conversation than you and I would be having. But like it's more that like we're willing to do it and the left can't fathom it. So the lines have sort of blurred. It's not because we're like the fun, loosey-goosey, like Lenny Bruce types. It's because we understand that like you can make a joke and it's not the end of the world. Yeah. You could say something kind of risque and it's not a microaggression.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that doesn't help the left in this case is that Trump is like the funniest president of all time. Man. I always forget the amount of things that are now in my lexicon just because he said them one time, like the so trues and many people are saying. The time. I forgot. Oh, it was when he was in Saudi Arabia the other day and he like walked out to the YMCA and everyone was laughing about it. And I remembered I hadn't thought about it in months, but the video of him at the armed services ball on Inauguration Day
where he has the swords and he's he's dancing with the sword. I'm like sitting on the couch working the other night and I pulled it up and was showing it to my wife and she's like, why are you watching this right now? I was like, it's awesome. He's like doing like this little thing with the sword, like the Trump dance. He's the funniest man in politics.
But the other thing, aside from that, is I think the president and the vice president are more authentic than anything the left has to offer. And I think one case in point is like they both write their own social media posts.
Yeah.
Like I know the vice president has been doing that since he was in the Senate.
He's very online. It's been talked about.
Yeah. One of us. See, this is what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what we do.
Exactly.
Oh man. Well, what do you think is the difference? I've asked a couple of people this and I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it, but it feels like the media is treating the president totally differently than they did in term one. Like talking about the mainstream media, they're still doing the traditional like lying or whatever, whatever it is they're doing. But it doesn't seem as openly hostile as it was in term one. What say you?
I think it's because there was a lot of time for a lot of things that they said were going to happen, and none of them happened.
Yeah.
Right. The closest that we came was that January 6th was supposed to be like the culmination of 4 years of the resistance, saying like this was what we were saying, and like this is gonna happen again, and then it didn't happen again, and like nothing really came from it, and a lot of people went to jail, and now they're out of jail, and it hasn't happened again. Like.
Yeah, we haven't had like got him out of jail.
It was supposed to be Holy Cross grad Ed Martin. Fun fact.
So true.
Many people are saying Eagle Ed, a crusader. It just didn't happen, right? And I'm not like a big. I think like there was a lot that was bad about January 6th. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, but like, we're still here, and so I do think that there was like much like the Democratic president. I'll tie it all back. Much like the Democratic presidential candidates who realize that if they want to like keep winning and like have people vote for them, they're going to have to moderate a little bit. They're going to have to like play nice with the mainstream a little bit. I think the mainstream media realizes like if they want people to keep watching them, they're going to have to be like a little bit less hysterical. And again, to your point, maybe it's a difference in degree and not kind. Like no one's going to say that Caitlin Collins is like super a fan of Trump, but like there is a distinct difference between the way Caitlin Collins covers the Trump administration and the way Jim Acosta covers the Trump administration. Like, Caitlin Collins is critical. She's asking critical questions of Republican lawmakers and of like members of the Trump administration and surrogates, but like she's not going full Acosta. She's not pushing over press aides and Mr. President, why do you think the media? Why are you gonna lock us in chains?
Why are you so mean to me?
Like that's done. That's sort of like. I mean, we saw that with the Correspondents dinner a couple weeks ago, right? Like, they said we're not having the comedian. And we're not going to invite the many celebrities. And it's good that Trump isn't coming because this year isn't a celebration. This year is a warning about the dangers that this administration poses to the First Amendment and the free press. And
that's all driven by Eugene Daniels.
But no one went to the party.
Yeah,
like, no one went to the party. Everyone went to all the other parties.
Yeah.
And the people who did go to the party then came to the other parties and said, man, the Correspondents dinner was really boring this year. So like, it's clearly not working. Like even in its more moderate, like toned down resistance 2.0 vibes, it's not working. And so I do think that's why it's like, it's again, it's just like whether they're happy about it or not, I think that they just woke up and smelled the covfefe and we're like, it's like, it's all right. Like we can't do this anymore or else we're going to look silly.
No, I went to like 4 right-wing parties that night and they were all very fun. So much better than whatever was going on over there.
If the White House Correspondents Association is listening, though, I will take an invitation next year. I would be honored to attend. Thank you.
You'll be the comedian, actually, because we're the only people that can actually be funny.
I'll wave my fate.
Yeah. Well, cool. This was very fun, man. Where can people find you? Keep up with all the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, you can find me on X at TimeRice1. TimeRice number 1. And of course, you should follow the Daily Wire and read the Daily Wire and follow all of our hosts and reporters. They're doing great investigative work. Listen to the Morning Wire podcast. Stay tuned. We're excited about the future. We're growing and tackling this fire hose of a news cycle by storm. So yeah, just Google me. I'm not the one who wrote the Broadway musicals. I'm the other one.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Moment of Truth. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Tim Rice. We had a lot of fun. Again, you can find out more things about American Moment at americanmoment.org. If you'd like to apply for the Fall Fellowship for American Statecraft, you can find out more information about it at americanmoment.org/fellowship. If you're going to be an intern in DC this summer and you want to join us for AM Fridays, get some free Chick-fil-A and a cool speaker, you can find out more information about that at americanmoment.org/AM Fridays. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Moment of Truth is an American Moment podcast taped at the Conservative Partnership Campus Studios and is produced by Jake Mercier and Hunter Smith, with original graphics and title cards by Jared Cummings. Our intro song is A Minor Struggle by Ryan Serenich, and our website is americanmoment.org.